Hi guys, Freddy here with another retro RPG and another poll. And the winner of this week's one is the Lord of the Rings role-playing game, which we've got here. Now, the weird thing about this poll was Stargate was winning it for most of the week, and I had to travel away. So what I was going to do was take whichever one was winning at the moment I was leaving and read up on it during the time I was away to do the video today. But the very morning that I was packing my stuff up to leave, Lord of the Rings suddenly jumped ahead. So I quickly swapped out the book, and I did take the right one, so I have studied up on this. This isn't just a last-minute look at it. Let's go over to the desktop. So this is the Lord of the Rings role-playing game by Decipher, which came out in 2002. Now, the only other game that I know of that Decipher also published was the Star Trek role-playing game, which I've heard some good things about, but it's not one of the ones I own. So I'm not really aware of how good the rule system for it was, but as I said, I've heard some very good things about it. Now, this isn't the first Lord of the Rings role-playing game to have come out, because obviously Iron Crown Enterprises had their MERP system, the Middle-earth role-playing system, which was a kind of spin-off of Rolemaster using some of the same rules. And I understand there's a newer role-playing game out by Cubicle 7 now, based on Lord of the Rings. And Cubicle 7's a British company set up by one of the guys behind Slay Industries. But again, it's not a game I have, so I can't really comment on it. Now, let's have a look at the back cover. The Lord of the Rings role-playing game. Welcome to the epic fantasy that started it all. Join the epic struggle of good versus evil in the greatest fantasy universe ever imagined. Master wondrous magic and defeat fell beasts as your heroes face the dark might of the Shadow and its servants. Prepare to enter Middle-earth, the realm that introduced fantasy to generations of fans the world over. The Lord of the Rings role-playing game brings the epic adventure of J.R.R. Tolkien's beloved trilogy, an acclaimed hit movie, to players and fans everywhere. Now you and your friends can enter Middle-earth and take on the roles of any character or hero you can imagine, from a reluctant hobbit like Frodo to a powerful wizard like Gandalf. Everything you need to play is contained in this book. Your stories are waiting to be told. The Lord of the Rings role-playing game includes character creation that is nearly limitless in scope, including 6 archetypes to get you started quickly. The complete CODA system rules, allowing for quick, flexible, and cinematic gameplay. An innovative magic system that captures the subtle nature of power in Middle-earth. Detailed guidelines for creating and telling your own stories set in Middle-earth, including tips for creating truly epic stories linked into extended chronicles. So, I don't know whether you pick up from the tone on that, but I get the feeling this is set at fans of the movies rather than hardcore role players. It's very much trying to be an introductory game, especially just some of the way it phrases things there. But I find it slightly odd in the phrasing, the acclaimed hit movie. Well, it was a trilogy. I definitely remember there being 3 movies in the Lord of the Rings series. So it seems an odd mistake to make. Perhaps the cover was proofread by somebody official and not a fanboy who would know these things. Now, inside the book itself, we can see it is early 2000s desktop publishing. There's lots of nice colour plates. It's well laid out. So we've got an introduction here. What is role-playing? A glossary of terms detailing dice rolls, non-order skills, different system things, basically. There and back again. So we've got the lands and realms of Middle-earth. And we go through the different areas, the halls of the dwarves, the grey havens, the white towers. So, talking about the world beyond the films. So, definitely an introductory to the world of Lord of the Rings. And very useful it is too, because I have to admit, while I am a massive fan of the Hobbit novel, and I did love the 3 movies, they are fantastic, I'm not the world's biggest fan of Lord of the Rings and the book itself. I read it once when I was about 15 or 16, and I found it a bit of a slog. I'd read The Hobbit, and it was a whole load of fun. A great, fun book for kids. And then I thought, well, Lord of the Rings is the continuation. It's going to be more. But it's not. It's a very heavy book. I'd probably like it now when I'm into more serious reading. But as a 15-year-old, I wanted more fun, and I wasn't getting it from Lord of the Rings. So we've got more pages on different sections. The Grey Mountains, Gundabad, the Misty Mountains, the Iron Hills, Erebor the Lonely Mountain. Just an introduction to the world. Navigating our way around. Although I don't see a map yet. The Dead Marshes, Barad-dûr, Rhûn, and finally we come to a map, which is in an odd place. Usually in role-playing games, you get the map at the front or back. I would have expected this white space here to be a map. Easy to find. You just flip the book open and there's the map for you to show your players. Oh, you're traveling from Erebor south, so we're going past the mountains of Mirkwood. This is a lovely map. I just find it in a slightly odd place. Then we're on to creating your hero. Character archetypes. So we've got some pre-made characters here, basically, which are filled out. I've mentioned many times before that I'm a big fan of templates, where you can choose to be a dwarf warrior and pretty much just start playing. I'm not that massive fan of you are Gror, the dwarf. I'd much rather choose my own dwarf name and create my dwarf history as I go along. But I just want the stats there and then if I'm going to start playing. Yeah, I want everything on my plate. I'm greedy that way. So we've got an elf and a hobbit, a wizard of some kind there, human warrior, might and majesty. So we go into the attributes. So each attribute has a score that ranges from 2 miserably weak to 12 amazing. And what are the attributes? Primary attributes. Bearing, nimbleness, perception, strength, vitality, wits. And you've got secondary attributes. Reaction, stamina, swiftness, willpower, wisdom, defense, health. Section detailing the qualities of heroes. We've got wound levels, weariness level. Because weariness is very much a thing in Lord of the Rings, where your characters can get tired. Because, obviously, in the movies, they're walking for a very long time, and they get fatigued as the adventure goes on. Got other attributes here. Courage. Renown. Changes to attributes. Role-playing attributes. So, like Dungeons & Dragons, or the early versions at least, you're supposed to choose your attributes first and then see what kind of character your attributes match. So if you've rolled a high intelligence, you're going to want to play a wizard. I've never liked that. I much prefer the point allocation system, where you can choose to spend your points to have a high intelligence if you want to be a wizard, but if you're trying to be a fighter and that's what you've got your heart set on, and you roll a rubbish strength, then it's a big disappointment. We've got the races, so we've got the dwarves, the elves, and we've got different types within them. I kind of skipped over the dwarves there, but we've got sylvan elves, we've got the Noldor, the high elves, the Sindar, the grey elves, and we've got different types within it. So although we've only got 4 species, men or humans, hobbits, elves and dwarves, we have subspecies within that. So we've got hobbits here, Falahides, Harfoots and Stoors. We go on to men, the Dunedain, the Middle Peoples, men of darkness, the wild men. So they get different attributes depending on, or rather different skills depending on where they're from. We've got ages and aging effects, and then we're on to warriors, wizards and kings. So basically the classes. So if I can find the section here, we've got barbarians. And within barbarians again, barbarian packages. We've got the basic barbarian, the Druidan tribesman, the Southron nomad, the Losson tribesman, mountain folk. And we've got the abilities of the barbarians. Then we've got craftsmen and the different types: basic craftsmen, gardeners, innkeepers, smiths, stonemasons. We've got lore masters, Basic Lawmaster, Eriadorian Sage, Gondorian Scholar, Minas Tirith Healer, Rivendell Scholar. And that's how it works. So you're picking from your basic race and your basic class, and then you're picking a sort of package between or within each. So you're choosing what type of dwarf you want to be and what type of warrior. We carry on through. So we've got magicians with basic magicians, wizard's apprentice, student of the secret arts, traveling magician, and tribal magician. We've got mariners and their package: basic mariner, fisherman, navy, riverman, shipwright. Minstrels, quickly trying to get through these: basic minstrels, Gondorian minstrel, performer, Rorik bard, tribal chanter. Nobles, what do we got here? Basic noble, Gondorian lord, Eriadoran gentry, leader of folk, and tribal chieftains. We've got rogues. So basic rogue, burglar, of course. You had to have burglar because that's how Bilbo describes himself. We've got outlaw, lurker, and pickpockets. And then warriors, I believe these are the last, with basic warriors, bowmen, horsemen, scouts, sentinels, sheriff. We've got the elite orders here. Trying to skip through so I don't spend forever on this video. Ringing anvils and rhymes of law. So basically the skills system. So we've got a very generic list of skills here, which hook into attributes and what kind of test category when you're rolling on them. So acrobatics, craft, climb, games, mimicry, siegecraft, stealth, the usual Dungeons & Dragons kind of skills. And that's a point I've got to make about this game. It is very Lord of the Rings. It is very Dungeons & Dragons, I'm sorry. It is Lord of the Rings, obviously. But it is very Dungeons & Dragons. Where Dungeons & Dragons was obviously people had read Tolkien and were making up a game which was very Tolkien-like, this seems to be doing the same process. But, well, D&D is popular, so we're going to do things the D&D way. There's obviously some differences, but it just feels very Dungeons & Dragons in its likeness. While it's generically Lord of the Rings, it's more Dungeons & Dragons' approach to Lord of the Rings. Or at least that's my opinion, and I haven't played this. This is just a brief look through. I've spent a few days reading through the book. Haven't played it at all. So I could be very, very wrong. But just everything I read didn't seem to be approaching things in a new way. So we've got skills here, detailed out longer. Some very nice artwork, as well as lots of stills from the movies, obviously. Stern men resolute. So we've got edges and flaws. So the advantages and disadvantages of the system. Healing hands, keen-eyed, keen-nosed, night-eyed. Strong-willed, tireless, two-handed fighting. Just very much like the perks of different systems, ways of making your character slightly different, and adding some character to it. You know, you can add a crippling wound. Your character has a duty to fulfill. They've got an enemy, so they can start play a bit more rounded. Words of power and runes of might. So, the magic system. Now, one of the points that I was making about it being very Dungeons & Dragons-like, when we get to the spells here, they are very much a big spell list. Animal Messenger, Beast Summoning, Burning Sparks, Create Light. Now, Gandalf, although he's a wizard in the books and the movies, never acts just like a wizard in Dungeons & Dragons. But this is just a magic system like Dungeons & Dragons. You've just got a list of spells. It's a bit disappointing to me. I would have preferred something a bit more like Ars Magica, Mage, even Witchcraft, where the spells are more flexible and the wizards can do different things based on their power, rather than I just cast Create Light. The system is based around weariness, so casting spells doesn't expend spell slots, but kind of like Shadowrun, makes you a bit more tired every time you cast a spell. And let's flick through the spell systems. We have lots and lots of spells here. Enchanted items, so various magical items, which is kind of nice. Lord of the Rings is well suited to magical items. The lesser rings, axe and sword, so the equipment section with weapons. Again, very Dungeons and Dragons like, with a standard amount of damage done by each weapon. Various gear you can buy. Good words and true. So this is the rule system, the CODA system as they call it, which I'll go into more detail on Friday. Making skill test. To make a skill test, roll 2d6. Opposed skill tests. Just all the standard stuff. Close combat tests, range combat, modifiers, target motion, unseen attacks and fear, horses, corruption, heroes in battle. Just all the kind of standard things you expect from any fantasy game. Poisons, healing, weariness levels, traveling, travel speed. I did find it slightly odd that riding a horse, your travel speed is 3 miles an hour, whereas walking, your travel speed's 2.5 miles an hour. Obviously modified. You know, horses go the same speed as somebody walking over rough ground, which makes sense, but I would have thought a horse would have been a lot faster than just 3 miles an hour, when your average character can wander along just behind a horse. Saga and grandeur. Running a chronicle. Lots of stuff on making up a campaign in the world of Lord of the Rings, which is absolutely fantastic. Storied heights and firelit halls. So going on about campaigns, which they call chronicles, story elements, supporting cast. Lots of introductory stuff into becoming a games master and making it Tolkien-esque. A late Third Age timeline before the war. So laying out history as well, whereas the earlier section laid out the geography, this lays out the history. And then we're on to experience, a character advancement. Experience awards, renown awards, fear in the shadow, so we're on to the monster section. We've got Nazgul, Saruman the White, Gollum, Grima Wormtongue, orcs, just all the standard monsters out of the movies. We've got Shelob, wolves, hellhawks, and finally character sheets. Look very Dungeons and Dragons like, but I think these bubbles are kind of small for writing a rank in. I much prefer more space. The health levels, equipment and gear, just standard character sheets. And very finally, an index. And at the back, we've got a tiny bit of map. What I expected to be in the front, we've got a tiny bit at the back. That's not really any use unless you are just in Gondor, Rohan, Mordor. Much preferred to have a full map, which would have been of use to a player or a games master. But that is the Lord of the Rings role-playing game. 2002 by Decipher. It's a very nicely presented book, but I really think it's suited more towards beginners. But, as always, I think I've rambled on for quite long enough. Thank you very, very much for watching, as always. Please like, subscribe and comment below, as it does me massive favours with the YouTube algorithm. But, as always, most of all, you look after yourselves, and I'll catch you later. Bye now.